Potability is generally a term used to describe the quality of water, and it implies that the water is safe to drink and to use. By implying that, it means that it should be free from contaminants. My experience based on treating water in the country has been that the concept of potability is often governed by the water sample that is done and people's perception of that sample with regards to how potable the water is. Potability matters because it is the benchmark being used in real estate transactions. It's how, when you submit a rural water sample, you're gauging, and it's what is publicly available for free to test at the local public health unit. The definition of potable is important because if your water source contains more than just the bacteria that's being tested for, that has potential implications for you and your home. I'm Jeff Wall from Wall Water Watch, and today I'm going to explore the concept of potability in water and how it is relevant within different jurisdictions within Ontario and within Canada. Today's three keys in the podcast are people's interpretation of what potable means, what their perception of what potability means with regards to safety and usage. The third key is the jurisdiction which the water source is governed by. Health Canada sets out drinking water guidelines in order to make the water safe to drink. Those guidelines are based on microbiological contaminants, physical contaminants, chemical contaminants, and radiological contaminants. The guidelines outline 97 different parameters within those four classifications to set out what is potable water. Municipalities will deem potable water based on federal and provincial regulations, which includes some of the Health Canada guidelines. They imply that the water meets the potability requirements of the certification, whether that's federal or provincial, to supply you water. In a health unit test, the potability or evidence of potability is based on bacteria only. So there is no reference to any other contaminant in a health unit test for potability. And in a real estate transaction, potability is deemed on a bacterial test as well. So within the four guidelines, the concept of potability in water is not the same within the four categories, but public perception of potability is often the same, that the water is safe and meets drinking water guidelines, yet the jurisdiction doesn't require the full scope of testing to meet the guidelines as part of the requirements. So in the public health unit case, they clearly state that they are not testing for anything other than bacteria and that other chemicals could be present in the water. But the perception that people have when they get a bacterial analysis back is that it's safe water. So potable water is the perception of the user based on the jurisdiction that they're doing. So if you live in the country and there's no jurisdiction, how do you judge the potability of your water when there's no guideline to provide that jurisdiction? So as part of what I do, we treat lake water in the region that we operate in, and we had an experience with a customer regarding their water source that they were drawing from a lake. The customer contacted us when they were concerned not so much about the smell or anything wrong with the water. They just had been educated a little bit about what could be in lake water and were concerned that maybe something else was there that they were unaware of. So we actually conducted a water sample for something called nitrate and nitrite. And those are evidence of agricultural runoff or potentially septic runoff that is entering a water source. And their water source contained from the lake an elevated level of nitrate that exceeded the drinking water guidelines, which they were completely unaware of. That really shocked the customer and outlines why proper water treatment is important and proper testing is important to provide safe water. We ended up installing a reverse osmosis unit for this customer who could take out that nitrate. and they can trust the quality of their drinking water now, knowing that they can take out the contamination. In exploring potable water, it's a common practice that people will boil water in order to remove any kind of contamination that can be present. When you boil water, you kill anything that is living in that boiling process, but you concentrate whatever is present in the pot or in the kettle. As the steam rises, pure water rises, the amount of water gets smaller as you boil. You're concentrating whatever is in that water in the available amount of water. So depending on what's there, you can actually have a higher concentration of a contaminant in a water source by boiling it if there's heavy contamination present. The term potability is often used to refer to water, and it is directly related to the jurisdictional component that the test is being applied to. So the term potable is often done and referenced in conjunction with a water sample, and that water sample is being done by, for example, a municipality if you're testing municipal water, or by guidelines that are set out by Health Canada or by public health units. That potability, while they're not a common practice in the term, is a common perception that people have of water. They want water to be safe. Potable water implies safe to use and to drink. So if you live in the city and you have municipally supplied water, that water meets the federal and provincial standards that are outlined for the municipality to provide you the water. It's your choice whether that water is safe for you to consume, right? That choice is the same in the country, except there's no treatment being provided to your water source. So when you're in the country, your potability of the water or the safety of the water should be more than just the bacterial concentration that is provided with a local health unit test. Potable should meet your requirements in your home for how you want to use the water and what you deem is safe in the house. Bacteria-free water can have contamination that goes undetected in a test. So in a previous episode, we discussed the differences between working water and drinking water. The term potable generally refers to the drinking water component, but it does refer to the working water because it's the water you use in your home. You want that water not to be of contamination in any way, shape, or form in order to provide you and your family with safety. So potable is not just for drinking water, it's for the water you use every day as well. It doesn't have to be absolutely clean to put it down the toilet, but you don't want that water causing any grief in your home, scaling, staining, or a malfunctioning of your appliance. The water that's supplied to you by a municipality meets federal guidelines. Contamination exists that is not being tested for, that are in water sources, such as PFOS and PFAS, that are not part of municipal requirements for drinking water. So if your municipality is not required to test for something and it's present in the water source, is that safe drinking water? This is why potability is important, and your perception of potability needs to be on known contamination, not just what is being tested for. The scope of potability is very large and relevant to the water source that you have. But I have personal experience with wells that exceed the Canadian drinking water guidelines for things like dissolved solids and hardness that can have implications in the home that go undetected in that public health unit test. So perception and potability go hand in hand. If you perceive your water as safe, you don't look any further to find anything else that could be there. In rural areas, you are responsible for what water you consume. There is no jurisdiction or legislation that exists or is required. This goes based on people handing me their water samples from the public health unit and saying, I had it tested at the local health unit, it's safe. Yet I do a test and I find that the dissolved solid levels are off the charts, and dissolved solids are mineral counts in the water. It passed the health unit test, but it fails the Canadian drinking water guidelines. I can show you that multiple times over. So the perception is that the water is safe. It's not that this water doesn't meet the jurisdictional requirement, because it is. It meets the bacterial requirement. That's the jurisdiction. But other contaminants exist that go undetected in testing. potability of water should be based on all known contaminants and unknown contaminants to ensure the safety of your water, and water treatment solutions can provide that level of safety. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of WAL Water Watch. You can find out more information by visiting our website at www.walwater.com, and WAL is WAHL water.com.